In October of 1972, a 22-year-old construction worker in Bulgaria dug up something with his excavator, picked it out of the mud, and carried it home in a shoebox. For a few days, that shoebox sat in his house like any other junk. It was at that moment the single oldest treasure on planet Earth, older than the pyramids, older than writing, and it was about to expose something deeply strange because everything inside that box was made of one specific metal, a metal that does not rust, does not tarnish, and does not behave like anything else we pull out of the ground. A metal that one man once gave away in such quantities that he crashed a country's entire economy by accident. A metal that the most powerful banks on Earth are, right now, hoarding faster than at almost any point in history. And a metal with one dark secret at the center of it all. It cannot be made here. Not in a lab, not in a volcano, not anywhere on this planet. And for thousands of years, nobody could say where a single atom of it actually came from. The answer was only caught on camera 9 years ago, and it is the wildest part of this entire story. So let us start with the shoebox. The worker's name was Was Marinov, and he was digging the foundations for a canning factory near the city of Varna, on the Black Sea coast, when his bucket scraped up something that glinted. A few days after taking it home, he showed the pieces to local archaeologists, and everything changed. What Marinov had clipped with his excavator was a prehistoric cemetery, nearly 300 graves, and inside them, around 3,000 gold objects weighing about 6 kilograms in total. Radiocarbon dating placed the burials at roughly 4,500 years before Christ. That is 6,500 years ago. Older than the pyramids, older than Sumer. It is the oldest processed gold ever found on Earth. And one grave, grave number 43, held a single man buried with more gold than had been found in the entire rest of the world from that era combined. Think about what that means. Before writing, before the wheel had spread, before almost anything we would call civilization, somebody was already so obsessed with this metal that a community poured its entire treasury into one man's grave. Why? What'd they see in it? Whatever it was, the Egyptians saw it too, and they turned that obsession into theology. To Egypt, gold was literally the flesh of the gods. When Howard Carter opened the tomb of Tutankhamun in 1922, he found the boy king's mummy wearing a funerary mask hammered from 2 sheets of gold weighing over 10 kilograms, resting inside an innermost coffin of solid gold weighing around 110 kilograms, one coffin. 1/4 ton of the rarest metal on Earth, sealed in the dark for more than 3,000 years for one teenager. But worship is not the same as money, and the leap from sacred metal to cash happened in one specific kingdom. Lydia, in what is now Western Turkey, in the middle of the 6th century before Christ. Its king was a man whose name you already use without knowing it, Croesus. As rich as Croesus. His capital sat on a river that carried gold dust down from the mountains, and his metallurgists cracked a problem no one had solved before, separating that natural gold and silver mixture into pure gold and pure silver. With pure metal, Croesus could do something revolutionary. He minted the world's first true gold coins of standardized purity, stamped with a lion and a bull, and built the world's first 2-metal money system. For the first time in human history, value itself could be counted, carried, and trusted. It was one of the most powerful ideas ever invented. It did not save him. Within a few years, Cyrus the Great of Persia conquered Lydia and took the whole system for himself, and the idea of gold coinage spread across the ancient world like fire. And once gold was money, gold became power, and power attracted a man who would demonstrate, on the largest possible stage, what happens when there is suddenly too much of it. The year is 1324. The emperor of Mali, Mansa Musa, possibly the richest human being who has ever lived, sets out on his pilgrimage to Mecca with a caravan that contemporary accounts put at around 60,000 people, with dozens of camels carrying gold dust. When this procession reached Cairo, one of the great financial centers of the medieval world, Musa began giving gold away, to the poor, to officials, to merchants, to practically everyone he met. The Arab historian al-Umari, who arrived in Cairo 12 years later, found the city still talking about it, because Musa had dumped so much gold into the market that its value in Egypt collapsed, falling by somewhere between 10 and 25%, a crash that took years to recover from. One generous tourist created a monetary crisis for a country he was just passing through, and in one of history's great ironies, he gave away so much that he had to borrow gold at high interest just to get home. That is the paradox at the heart of this metal. Its entire power comes from scarcity, and here is where I finally get to hand you the number this whole video has been building toward. According to the World Gold Council, all the gold ever mined in all of human history, every Varna burial, every pharaoh's coffin, every Lydian coin, every wedding ring on Earth right now, comes to roughly 200,000 tons. Melt it all down into one solid cube, and that cube would measure about 22 meters on a side. Every ounce humanity has ever dug up, from 6,500 years of obsession, would fit inside 3 Olympic swimming pools. That is why, when the metal did show up in quantity, people lost their minds. On the 24th of January, 1848, a carpenter named James Marshall was building a sawmill for John Sutter on the American River in California when he spotted flakes glittering in the water. He and Sutter tried to keep it secret. They failed completely. Over the next 7 years, roughly 300,000 people flooded into California from around the world, transforming a quiet territory into a state and setting off one of the largest mass migrations in American history. Marshall himself, the man who started it all, died poor. And by the 20th century, gold was not just underpinning fortune, it was underpinning every dollar on Earth. After the Second World War, the world's currencies were pegged to the American dollar, and the dollar was pegged to gold at $35 an ounce. Then, on the evening of August 15, 1971, President Richard Nixon went on television and announced that the United States was suspending the dollar's convertibility into gold. 15 minutes of talking, and the last link between the world's money and the world's oldest treasure was cut. For the first time in thousands of years, gold was officially just metal, except nobody actually believed that. From $35 an ounce in 1971, gold has climbed relentlessly, and in January of 2026 it touched an all-time high of over $5,400 an ounce, while the world's central banks, the very institutions that supposedly replaced it, have been buying it by the 1,000 tons per year. The people who print money are stockpiling the thing money used to be. Which brings us back to the question I asked you to hold at the start. Where did it come from? In 2017, astronomers detected gravitational waves from 2 neutron stars, the collapsed corpses of dead suns, so dense that a single cubic centimeter weighs 1,000,000 tons, slamming into each other in a distant galaxy. In the fireball of that collision, telescopes watched heavy elements being forged in real time, and that single event produced an amount of gold estimated at several times the mass of the Earth. That is the answer. Gold is not made on Earth. It is not even made in ordinary stars. Nearly every atom of it was created when dead stars collided billions of years ago, before our solar system existed, and the debris of those explosions was swept up into the forming Earth. So look at that gold ring one more time. The people of Varna were right to bury it with their kings. The Egyptians were right to call it the flesh of the gods. It is a fragment of a cosmic catastrophe older than the sun, sitting quietly on a human hand. If you love this story, give the sub, and if not, God be with you.